Hello, folks, and welcome to Hogarth's Global Astrology. Know your planets, know yourself, know your nation, know yourself, interchangeable. And this is it. Yeah, this is it. This is the big kahuna. Yeah, the big build up where basically I share this video of this rather extraordinary dream that I had on the 17th. Now, I just want to apologize in advance if you can hear some loud voices in the background. That's my neighbors having an argument downstairs. But, you know, such is life. Such is life. I'm now reaching a place of zen and acceptance where I'm just like, you know what, there's nothing I can do about these things until I, of course, eventually find somewhere else to live, which I'm sure I will do with time. All right, look, there is a lot to unpack here in this stream. There's a lot to unpack. I've spent the last couple of days really, making. I've made a lot of notes. These were sort of like my original notes, which you'll see here, which I literally wrote down after I had the dream, etc. and everything. I mean, I've never had a dream like this before. I've had some pretty epic dreams, but this was a really big one. I have also made extra notes. Now I've scanned these images here. I'll describe. I've scanned them and I'm going to actually post them on the community post. Yeah. So when I actually notify you guys when this video is up, in that notification, I'll also add these scans. So then you can, because what I'm going to be talking about is going to seem very otherworldly, and I hope it makes sense. These notes will be scanned as well. This is all about the chakra system, etc., and how that works with the planets. And this is me actually in many ways just putting forward a lot of the knowledge and experiences that I have sort of like behind the camera, so to speak. This is really one of the first times I'll actually be discussing my psychic side, and I just feel now it just seems to be the right time. But I also know as well there'll be no kind of going back after this as well, because what I'm offering here is really quite something. Some people may just think it's a whole pile of BS. And you know what I would say? Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But, figuring that many of you have been watching my channel for quite a while now. It will be in March, it will be 2 years. Since 30th of March will be when I started. Many of you have come on this journey with me. I'm sure many of you will understand. I also want to say a massive thank you as well. And my goodness, divine timing, how it works, because today is the day where I have actually officially reached 10,000 subscribers. Woo! Wow. So I just want to say a thank you so much to everyone who has supported my channel, continues to support my channel. And of course, people that have been subscribing and liking, please do continue. Of course, it helps the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. Because really, what I'm talking about, as we know, is something really quite different. The tradition in the West is, of course, Western astrology, yeah, which still works, of course, which still works. But as you know, I am a Neo-Vedic astrologer. I include the outer planets. I include, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And I also include in my readings, when I'm doing Vedic astrology, I include the important asteroid, Chiron, and the planetoid, Ceres. Now, Ceres orbits between Mars and Jupiter. It's in the asteroid belt. And actually, it could... we have Pluto, who I still consider a planet who was demoted. Ceres is actually bigger than Pluto, so she should be a planet as well. But anyway, these arguments are neither here nor there. So really, okay, what is this all about? And how can I condense this down into something that is going to be tangible and meaningful for everyone that watches this video? As you can see, I've got some extensive notes on the backboard here. This is going to be just to help also as an aid memoir, but also for you guys to read as well about the energies of the planets that came through. And also just to have it as a future reference point as well, you know, for the video and stuff like that. I also have my notes here as well in terms of just to make sure that I stay on track with what is that I'm about to share. And I'll also put those notes, I'll scan some of those notes as well, which are relevant, particularly when I start talking about the pros and the cons of certain developments in humanity. All right, so here we go. All right, this is it. So this dream. So when did I have this dream? Let me just flick back through my notes here and look at this beautiful book that I was given as a Christmas present. Look at that. It says, what does it say? It says, "Live by the sun, love by the moon." But isn't that gorgeous? Love that. Anyway, so if we look here, so here what I did was I actually made. These are the notes that I actually made soon after I had the dream. So this happened at approximately 6:19 a.m. on Monday, the 17th of January, 2022. Today's date is the 19th of January, 2022, just so that we've got this reference point in time for the video. Now, I reflected, before I tell you the contents of the dream, I reflected on the timing and I was thinking like, why on earth did this happen? And now many of you will know on, so in terms of speaking about elements of my chart, you know, in my chart, sidereally, I have a Cancer ascendant, yeah, Cancer ascendant. We all know Cancer is ruled by what? The moon. And my moon is in sidereal Gemini. I have a Gemini moon. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Yeah, chatty, all about information, communication, media, etc. All of that stuff. And here I am, touting all this various stuff on what? YouTube, social media. Yeah. This is how it is. You know, my clients will know this. And what I discovered was, now everyone knows that the full moon, both in sidereal astrology and Western astrology, was in the sign of Cancer. There is an overlap of about 6 degrees in both systems, but Western astrology is technically 24 degrees ahead of the true placements because the stars, repeat after me, all move backwards by 1 degree every 72 years, which means every 2,400 years approximately, the zodiac moves backwards by 1 whole sign. Yeah, this is why you have the difference between Western astrology and tropical, Western astrology, which is tropical, and Vedic astrology or Babylonian astrology, which is sidereal, which means it basically follows the stars as they progress backwards. Yeah, so both systems work. But what I would say is, for those of you that may be unsure about Vedic astrology, just talk to my clients. Talk to my clients. You can see the reviews that they've left on my Facebook page, and the link is always below in every video. Just look there and see what they have to say without me kind of going like this. Okay. So, in a way, to kind of quote Joe Biden's recent speech, yeah? And I know some of you give me a little bit of shtick for pointing certain things out about him, yeah? Because you've got to remember, no one's perfect. You know, I'm very fair, I'm very even. I'll give everyone stick if they need it, and give everyone praise if they need it as well. You know, and you know, this is part of the flavor of my channel and probably, you know, one of the reasons why you tune in. But anyway, the point is this. When he said that America is at an inflection point, he was absolutely correct. Yeah, we know a lot of that energy is happening there. But really, I want to take that inflection point that he mentioned in his speech and actually expand it, because in this dream, it was revealed to me by a combination of what I would say an advanced entity, you know, someone we might call an alien or something like that, and the combination of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all stepping forward into this dream simultaneously at once. So you might be thinking, oh my goodness, now this could be the point where you guys are just like, Hoagie has completely gone off the deep woo-woo end, or you may be fascinated. I hope it's fascination, because this dream for me was just a real OMG. And I mentioned it to a couple of friends and clients of mine, and they were like, look, you have to talk about this thing. So first things first, I don't just do astrology, I also channel the planets as well. Those of you who have had consultations with me will know this, yeah? And I've done hundreds and hundreds now, and you know, they've got their video recordings and everything like that. And again, if you want evidence of that, you know, they can just tell you for themselves or even share the recordings if they want. And why have I not mentioned this? Why have I not mentioned this? I mean, I've not mentioned it because, do you know what I mean? There is a lot of psychic, you know, wonderful, you know, incredible psychics and stuff like that out there, as we all know. We all watch each other and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone has said that they can actually channel the planets before. And really, when you think about it, I mean, it's almost an outrageous claim, isn't it? It's an outrageous claim to make. But it's true. It's true for me, at least, anyway. And I've had so many kind of psychic phenomena and stuff like that, and communications with the planets and all this kind of stuff, you know, lots. And if you guys would like to know a bit more about this, or the consciousness of the planets, which I'll go to explain to an extent anyway, but if you want me to make specific videos about this, and particularly things as well about the pineal gland and, you know, higher consciousness and all that stuff, then I will. So see this as, in a way, a kind of an introduction to sort of almost like the next level in terms of my channel, especially in terms of how I understand the planets and how their consciousness expresses itself so consistently through people's charts. Because really, a chart it's a language. It's a language. And if I just reach over, let me just grope here for let me just find an example here of someone's chart. I'll hide their name. I'll just do it like this. Now, you've seen me use these charts before. These are my general clients. You've seen me use these charts before, yeah? D1, Navamsha, etc. But really, what is this? A person's chart, even though this is a two-dimensional piece of paper, a person's chart works in 4 dimensions at least. A person's chart is an expression. If we look here, this shape here, especially in the D1, this is where the planets were sidereally at the time that this person was born. This is an expression of the soul contract before free will is applied to it. Yeah? Before free will. That, in many ways, what I've been shown is like, before we come to Earth and we're discussing about our life, and before we enter, you know, our mother's womb in terms of our spirit, and then are born, etc., there is a discussion that takes place. And it's almost like a school where all these different kind of charts are up. And if we decide that we want to come back for a reincarnation, we select the various different options that are there based on our previous karmas, yeah, previous lifetimes. And in a way, it's kind of like we have an expectation of what we can potentially expect our life to be like, but it will not unfold exactly like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Of course it can't, because there's human free will. However, so much of our life, particularly the early part of our life, when we're looking at the main chart here, the main chart, this goes from 0 years, from 0 years to about 35, 36, then the energy starts to change, And then we go into our Navamsha chart, the D9, second half of life. So much of the D1 depends not on our free will, because you've got to remember, when we're babies and children, we don't have much. It depends on the free will of our parents and the significant influences in our life. How about that? Because think about it. Makes absolute sense, yeah? When you're a baby, when you're a child, when you're, 5 years old, no 5-year-old says, oh, I want to be the CEO of a multinational company, have thousands of employees and, be ruling the world. No, the consciousness hasn't developed enough yet. We need to go through key stages. And really and truly, adulthood doesn't really begin until our first Saturn returns, which happens once every 29/30 years. So we have the first one around 29/30, where we really begin to reassess our lives, what it is that we want to do. We start feeling the need to grow up. And then we have another one in our 60s, which is a massive one. Just think about that. That is a hugely important time of life. And many of you who watch my channel, and many of you who have had consultation with me are at that crucial stage of life. It is I've had consultations with everyone, but the consistency of that age group is spectacular. And of course, the third, and for most people, final Saturn return is when we're, almost in our 90s. Yeah. And by then we really have lived a lot of life by that time. So I wanted to say that. And another thing I want to say as well is, and this is something that I feel needs to be addressed, is that, in the light worker community and stuff like that, which I completely understand how the rationale has kind of come about. There is this thing of like, well, whatever happened in my life, I attracted that to me. I'm responsible for that, etc., etc., etc. And what I want to say is this. Yes, but no. No, but yes. Now, what do I mean by that? We cannot take responsibility for absolutely everything that happens to us. We just can't. There are too many influences going on, because we don't only have our own lives and our free will. We have to deal with the free will of others and the planets and what is part of our soul contract. Yeah. When we're looking at our soul contract, we're not being given the absolute minutiae and detail of it all. Like, this is exactly what's going to happen. No, it's an overview before free will is applied. Particularly as well, if you think of childhood, think of anything that's happened in childhood and think how much of that was your free will. No, it depends on the free will of your parents and other children and adults around you. They're applying their free will to you. Yeah. So this is why what I found after hundreds of consultations, the consistency of how the energies work, because really what the energies in a person's chart is not only showing that person's life, it's showing everyone else in their life exercising their free will. And we have the least free will when we're what? Children. Decisions are made for us. Mother and father, sun and moon. All I have to do is look at the ascendant to find out, a lot about the person, but then sun and moon, it will deal with the mother and the father. And when we go into this, what I found is this has been tremendously healing for my clients, because there is a movement, and I don't want to attack it too much. This is not me attacking the light worker movement. I want you to understand this. I'm a light worker myself, but I also want people to forgive themselves for things that may have happened to them in their childhood, which wasn't something they wished upon themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean by this. I don't need to be explicit about it, but you know what I mean, yeah? How could one possibly either want or be responsible for those things? No, it's as we grow, as we increase in maturity, as our lives develop, as we become more conscious, we can apply our free will, yeah? And one of the natural consequences of living longer is usually maturity, but not always. Yeah. The Sanskrit name for the planets means graha. It means to grip. So it means, particularly in the early part of our lives, we are under the grip of the planets. It's one of the conditions of being here in Earth School. They are the bosses. They manage and run the development of consciousness for humanity while we're here in Earth School. That's how important the planets are. That's why when I look at a person's chart and I see the sun in a certain place, or Neptune in a certain place, or Uranus in a certain place, or the moon in a certain place, I know certain things have happened, or their life has transpired in a certain way, or the certain characteristics of those people in their life, because it's absolutely consistent. Because they are on that subconscious level, on that quantum level, they are applying their archetypal influences. Yeah? So I hope that makes sense. And now I'll go into the details. So I'll talk about that extraterrestrial entity at the end, once I've made my introduction into these three incredible planets that step forward. Now, like I said, what I'm revealing here, which of course you guys didn't know, I've had many contacts and stuff with the planets, and depending on what planet it is, they sometimes use avatars as well. The planets have avatars where they can literally kind of take on a form of consciousness that's actually easier for us to understand. Yeah. And particularly when this was happening earlier on in my life, they would come in a more sort of like physical form, so that I could, my mind could just accept that kind of rather augmented sense of reality. Now the planets, they just come forward as themselves. They just look like themselves. They just speak. So, and I have this happening intermittently and stuff like that. I mean, I'm always in dialogue with the planets anyway, because I read so many charts, I do so many consultations. My clients will tell you there are times literally the planet will come through with a direct message for my client if they feel the need to kind of speak up or own up to something or mention something, give an insight, give me some images, some words, or what have you. Yeah, it literally goes to that extent. Do they necessarily come forward with a message for every client? No, it's up to them. We need to understand that the planets are not just balls of gas with cores of iron and blah, blah, blah. They are entities. They are conscious. They influence. Planets are people. Like in the sense of like when I look at a person's chart, planets are people. The moon is your mother. The sun is your father. You know, Mars will represent your siblings, brothers, but brothers in particular. Venus represents all women, aunts. It can be even your auntie, your female boss, sisters, women of all kinds, stuff like that. It's extraordinary when you start getting into it. The myths and the mythologies as well of ancient Greece and stuff are so accurate. There are so many times when I'm explaining a certain concept to my clients where I will talk about a story of ancient Greece, which is where they really understood, and they were really, you know, the ancient Greeks, the Egyptians, you know, the Atlanteans, they were all in contact, you know, with the gods, the planets, and communing backwards and forwards and stuff like that. Along with, you know, people that we would consider extraterrestrial beings and all that stuff, because they didn't have that separation that we have now, you know, where part of the ego consciousness has grown to the extent to actually exclude all those other things. Yeah, so there's that. So you can imagine now, normally if a planet comes through and stuff like that, it may be one or maybe two. So I'll give you a little anecdote of when I saw a couple of planets back in the middle of summer of 2019. I had this very vivid dream, and it was Saturn and it was Pluto. Yeah, and they were coming along together, and they had this sort of chariot thing, and it was just filled up with all this stuff. And I'm there sort of like floating in space. Saturn I was more familiar with by that point, but Pluto, it was just like, yeah, he's not an easy planet. And I just had this impending sense of doom. And I was like, and I just said, what's in the chariot? Yeah. And no, this is what they said. They said, whoop ass. That, can you believe? I've only told a few people that dream. And I was like, oh my goodness, because I knew something huge and karmic was going to happen to humanity. And of course, you know, what happened later, we know that in terms of the big V, yeah, let's just put it that way, where it started off, you know, in that famous place in Asia, and you know, went on to take over, you know, the whole world. Really, that process actually began in November 2019, autumn of November 2019, when Mars was transiting sidereal Virgo, which deals with diseases and stuff like that. But anyway, there's that. So anyway, there's lots and lots of stuff about that. But anyway, I digress. So who am I going to be talking about now? I'm going to be talking about planets Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We're going to be talking about their good points and their shadow points. And I'm going to introduce a concept to you which I've not really made explicit, but I should. Look at this diagram over here. And here it says high to low. And then in between there's medium. Yeah? Simple concept. This, in terms of like here, so I've written here, how the energy of the planets manifests. And I've written here, the planets project their archetypal energies highest to lowest simultaneously. What level depends on your free will. This is where free will comes in. I want you to imagine that each planet is very much like a radio station. They actually give off frequencies. I mean, if you listen, just literally Google, what does planet Saturn sounds like? And it will give you the heebie-jeebies, yeah? It sounds like some weird sci-fi kind of sound, yeah? Saturn is also known as the planet of fear. The energy of the sun sounds very much like Om, yeah? Stuff like that. The planets have frequencies. So I want you to imagine that each one is like a radio station, and each planet is responsible for certain combinations of archetypes. Archetypes are thought forms. They're thought forms, which are kind of immortal, and they kind of come in and come out at various different times of humanity. So for example, let's talk about some obvious ones. Here's a classic one that we all know, which is sort of drifting out of the collective consciousness to an extent, but it's still there. And you will all know this. Anyone that's got children, particularly if they've got young girls in particular, the archetype of the princess. Yeah? You tell me that the archetype of the princess is not real. Yeah? It's impossible. It is one of the most powerful archetypes that there is. We all know what the princess is. We all know that energy. We all recognize it when we see it. One of the epitomes of the princess archetype, of course, was Princess Diana. Global archetype for that. And of course, when she passed, that's what so much of that, in a way, on a subconscious level, so much of that grieving was about, because we were lost to an extent that archetype. No one's come close since. Yeah, not to that level. And I think that's a fair point to say. Not to that level. Yeah. The other one, of course, is what's another good archetype? Of course, the king. The king is a great archetype, royal archetype. We'll all understand that king energy, that leadership. But it's also mother, father. But we have the thief archetype, the dictator archetype, etc., etc., etc. These are all thought forms that exist in the primordial. They're also part of the collective unconscious. And the planets epitomize certain combinations of archetypes which go from lowest vibration to highest vibration, as I've shown behind. But it's like a radio station broadcasting all of those archetypes from lowest to highest at once, simultaneously. And where we integrate where we express the archetypes of that planet depends at what level of vibration that we're at. Now, the lowest vibrations, as many people would expect, are the easiest. Yeah, they're the lowest frequency. They're the easiest. Let's call them infrared. Yeah, that's almost like heat. Yeah, they've got a long bandwidth. Yeah, long bandwidth. That's part of the energy is like heat. Yeah, this is the lower consciousness. This is the stuff that is expressed first. Yeah, this is the stuff that is expressed first. We need look no further than either, I would say, the animal kingdom, but in a way they're sort of exempt because they just go primarily on nature. You know, there is no choice between good or evil. They just, you know, be eaten, survive or not survive. Yeah, survival of the fittest. But one of the examples of this, of course, is when you just observe the behavior of children. Yeah, when you observe the behavior of children, then we will see all of humanity expressed from highest to lowest. Yeah. So that's what it's like in terms of our interaction. So if I'm looking at a chart, for example, depending on what sign and house a planet is in, it is telling me its level of consciousness for that person, what they're starting out with. We can all improve the consciousness of our planets, but not all of us get there. So that is based on previous lifetimes and incarnations. And when we're coming back, those are the options that we're given, so to speak. So let's say before we're going to incarnate, we're given the option between 5 different charts with all various different calibrations of karmas based on our previous lifetimes. And just like I showed you, it might be like, okay, I'm going to incarnate in this one and I'm going to experience this lifetime to try and develop that part of myself that was either underutilized in another part of life, or it is essentially something that's here for our further learning. And we agree, we say yes, we come down, and as we come down, we forget. Yeah, we forget what it's about. And then we're sort of like fumbling in the dark. And of course, we're children and we're dealing with everyone else's free will that is most of the time essentially imposed upon us. And then when we get older, we start to join up the dots of what's happened, this, that, and the other, etc. And then we start to develop, particularly when we get into the second half of life, when we hit 40 and we go fully into our Navamsha, which is always a reflection of the main chart. Then we can begin to start exercising more of our free will and have this understanding about our childhoods. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. So when I look at a person's chart, depending on the dignity of that planet, it will show me instantly at what level what level of consciousness it is bringing to that person's particular chart. But the Navamsha will reveal how the psychology and the frequency of that planet will change when it comes to the Navamsha. Most of the time it goes up, but not always. For some people it goes down, then they become less conscious as they get older. Yeah, it all depends. But I just wanted to say that so we can understand what I'm talking about in terms of these energies and stuff like that. I'm just going to pause for a second, comfort break.